whether it's inside us or anywhere around us. Well, this season, we're completely focusing on relationships because if there's one thing that the pandemic has taught us, it is how precious these relationships are. We're going the full spectrum and covering a range of relationships from birth relationships, spousal relationships, and simply friendships that are built on trust and love. Diving straight into episode 1 today, we have a very powerful lawyer couple. We all know the kind of lawyers they make, the kind of clients they service, the kind of team they've built, and the fact that they simply lead one of India's largest law firms. Well, please join me as we welcome Pallavi Shroff and Shardul Shroff of Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. So, we've always known the lawyers you are and the kind of work you do, but I don't think we've known too much about the two of you as people. So, we're honored that you're doing this. Thanks a bunch.
It's a pleasure, actually. This is quite fun. Looking forward to it.
Super. So are we. Vikas, over to you. We're starting off with the first segment, the interview round.
Good evening, Pallavi ma'am. Good evening, Shardul sir.
How are you?
So we're, as we were mentioning before, and you may have seen from our series 1, this is very much about the personal side of lawyers. So beyond the technical expertise we all know you for, I'm really delighted to have you on board for, I think, what could be one of your first interviews in a long time as a couple talking from a personal point of view.
That's true.
So again, thank you very much for kind of honoring us with this kind of conversation. But I want to go straight into, what is it like to be third generation lawyers? Because you come from a heritage, and a legacy that stretches back, many years, on both sides. So, what is it like? And if you could tell us a bit also about the stalwarts in both sides of the family.
Pallavi, ladies first.
Thank you. I come from a family of judges. As most people probably who logged on would know, my grandfather was Justice N.H. Bhagwati, who retired as a judge of the Supreme Court of India. My father was late Justice P.N. Bhagwati, who retired as the Chief Justice of India. And I decided to do law only after I got married because I was quite petrified of following in my father's footsteps and being compared to him, the genius that he is. So I actually quite happily thought I was getting married into a family where there were solicitors. And I didn't realize what a well-known family the Shroff family was, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law were, till I got married and I realized, they were a huge name in themselves. And that's actually, to be with Shardul is why I did law, because otherwise I've actually done business school. I did my MBA and I was working elsewhere. And when I got married, I decided to do law just to spend time with him. And then I have my own career now.
Any regret?
Go ahead.
No, I'm quite happy, actually. I'm so happy that I've done law because in this profession, I'm just doing so many different things, such a variety of matters that I do and the kind of work that I do corporate commercial work, and that's always been my area of interest. So this gives me actually the depth and the breadth of the kind of work that I've always wanted to do. So I'm very, very happy. Not a day of regret.
You also sit on a lot of boards, right? So I'm guessing that gives you the opportunity to sort of marry the law with business, and there's two primary interests for you. So that's
right. I think law is something very germane to society. It pervades through society, whether it's your basic human rights, fundamental rights that our forefathers of our constitution have given to us, the corporate side, which I focus on really. And there's nothing that you can do without knowing the law really. So when you look at the practice of law and when you sit on the business side on the boards, it just gives you such a wide perspective and a deep insight actually into the law. and then you carry the law aspects onto the board. So I think it's a perfect sort of a blend between the two.
Sure.
And Shardul, sir, how do you kind of, obviously I know, there's a family of lawyers there as well. So was it a natural given that you were going to also join the law?
Yeah, I think it was probably predestined, or my parents used to talk about us doing law right when we were kids. So it was a natural transition for us. I was never afraid of the law. And my father was also a giant in his field. And my mother was also a practicing lawyer. So it was all of us literally in our generation, Pallavi and me, Cyril and his wife Vandana, my mother and father, everybody was a lawyer. So it was as if it was a natural progression into the law. And my grandfather, out of the Amarchand Mangalas, started the firm in 1917. He was the first generation. Then my father and uncle, and then of course my mother joined in also in 1955. And they practiced the law till they died. And then my generation, and now the fourth generation, which is my two daughters. They are both practicing lawyers and they're partners at the firm. So it's four generations on both sides, which is pretty unique because for Pallavi, it is her grandfather, her father,
Me.
and then the children. For me, it's my grandfather, my father, myself, and my daughter. So it's pretty unique for four generations of law from both parents.
And to be still being successful as well, because most kind of leadership strategy will say by the third or fourth generation, most businesses don't succeed. That's by the third, fourth generation, they start falling apart. So to actually not just continue being lawyers, but to maintain a high benchmark, is very rare as well.
Yes, I think we have stayed ahead of the curve. We've always experimented with newer techniques of management. We have professionalized the firm in the sense that almost every function of the firm is manned by a professional expert. And of course, two of us have a role in management. We are a minority on our own board. There are 6 people on the management committee and 4 are non-Shroffs. So we have practiced, in a sense, the whole issue of spreading out and giving more of our equity away. Today, the family is only 40% of the total capital of the firm, the equity capital of the firm, and which is perhaps unique because though people think we are a family firm, we are not. We are just 5 family members out of a total of 607 lawyers.
So if I could add, I think what's important over the generation is a sense of perfection, a sense of doing your very best. So a good education is critical and it's important. And while we got good education from our parents, we ensure that our children also get good education, the best. And I think what you convey to them, how you communicate to them, the whole passion for excellence, the passion for doing your very best, and being at the top of your profession. I think the profession should always come first. And unless you excel in the profession and you are accepted for what you are and not for who you are, I think that's very critical. And that's the one thing that we sort of inculcated in our children. And I thought that was very, very important and critical for us. Like they have to grow up like everybody else in the firm, start right at the bottom and then move their way up. Maybe they were at a disadvantage because they were always sort of, because they were our children, I thought they were at a disadvantage rather than being at an advantage. But I think instilling in them the value of excellence is very, very important.
I remember you mentioned when we were talking earlier before the show that you were hesitant of joining the law until you got married. It wasn't a career you were going to do because obviously you've got the legacy behind you to live up to.
That's right.
How did you deal with that? And then how do you manage that for your children? Because your children then have that legacy, you know, further on them?
So I think when I started the practice of law, I actually didn't let the legacy burden me. I was happy to be part of that legacy. And I just sort of put my head down and continue working. And that's the values that I had inherited from my parents. And I saw my in-laws with the same humble approach. And, all that we were ever told is put your head down and do your work. You don't worry about anything else. And that's what we did. And you grow into the profession, you get guided, you get mentored, and you grow into the profession. Equally for our children, I don't think we put any pressure on them at all to go out and achieve. But I think the only mantra that I have sort of mentioned to them is strive for excellence in whatever you do. Anything, whether you're doing it in your personal life or professional life, just strive for excellence and hard work. Hard work kill no one. There is no shortcut to hard work. So today we have children, both our children who work 15 hours a day, 14 hours a day, as whatever is required. So I think just two values, and then I think the so-called legacy doesn't sit hard on your head or on your shoulders.
I think in general, the firm and the family have been completely a meritocracy. We have not thought about any other way in terms of hiring people, in terms of growing and mentoring people upwards. And it's basically been merit and a very balanced outlook to life. So in a sense, a very equanimous existence, people who have sort of have an even temper in terms of their way they work, and respect comes by itself, because if you are humble, if you are hardworking, if you are not got a chip on your shoulder, and you're basically been selected on a merit basis, then in a sense the organization works only on merit. And I don't recollect ever having asked any person who has joined our firm as to what are his connections or what is his pedigree. We've just gone on the basis of good nature and good studies, good skills, and that's all that mattered to us.
Thank you for sharing that. That's actually very interesting. And we're glad that the firm is run the way that Sir just shared it is. So I'm going to ask you your next question. And Pallavi ma'am, this is more from your perspective. So, Shardul sir was chosen to go off to Delhi. I think your father asked you to go off to Delhi. There was a firm that you were then merging with. And you were married then, and I think you had a child already, right? Your first was born.
No, I was expecting my first.
Oh, you were
daughter.
expecting your first. Oh, wow. And that's when you sort of upped and left and went
Yes.
off to a city that neither of you had ever lived in before. You had no family there. You had no connections there on the business side either. And you just went in and kind of took over Delhi by a storm. How did that pan out for the both of you?
Well, I don't know if we took over Delhi by storm, but it was baptism by fire. We took over this firm and both of us came here. And I remember the day I got my license to practice, the very next day I had to be in court. We had inherited so many cases that we couldn't afford not to sort of deal with situation as they were unfolding. I had to be in court. It was a examination in chief, and then I had to do a cross examination before Justice Leela Seth. And I started. I was literally one day at the bar, and I had to start. So had very little choice but to prepare and go there. But I have to say, I have a mentor. We had a mentor in Mr. Muralidhar Bhandare. He's been a family friend. And so I wrote out all my questions. I went to him early morning and asked him whether, what should I do? Is this right? Is it wrong? And he said, just go ahead and do what you have to do. And well, that's how it started. I went to court. I started asking all the questions. Of course, I made mistakes. And just as Leela said, but I remember her telling me one question isn't this a leading question to your own witness? And I said, oh God, I've made a mistake. Of course, you quickly take a step back and recollect yourself and again. And at the next day, when I was still continuing, when Shardul walked into the room, he was in another matter. He walked into the courtroom. Justice Seth told him, Mr. Shroff, you can leave the court because, now it's a matters between her and me. And I'm here and she's there. We'll manage, like, literally. So you can leave the court. You don't need to worry. I mean, that itself was so much encouragement for somebody who was 2 days at the bar. And there were so many other judges to whom I'm so grateful that they actually encouraged me to get up and argue and, sort of shed the fear that you have. Because this was not a moot court. One is used to a moot court, but when you're in court in real, it can be intimidating when you're the first day at the second day at the bar.
And there are stakes, right? I mean, there are
Yeah,
clients.
yeah. There are stakes in it. It's
involved.
real. It's for
Very
real.
real, correct.
Yeah.
But tell me, ma'am, while you found a bunch of very encouraging judges, I think there must have been a very, very small population of women in courtrooms at the time.
There were very, very few. There were very few indeed. Maybe 4 or 5 of us who practice quite seriously. Most of them have gone on to become judges. Some of us still practice at the bar. But there were about 5 of us who I used to see every single day in court, say from 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning when the court started till 4 o'clock. Because good old days, we used to have, miscellaneous matters to begin in the morning, and then we had actual trial work in the afternoon. And you went in for the miscellaneous, you stayed back till trial, and you came home, like literally. So yeah, there were very, very few of us. And I think a lot of them actually, Justice Geeta Mittal and I were in court every day. Justice Reva Khetrapal, she also went on to become a judge. She's now retired. Then Justice Rekha Sharma. Rekha and I we were around the same contemporaries. And so Avnish Alawat is still there at the bar. So 2-3 of us are still around at the bar, but yeah.
Largely a small number.
Yeah. And today I'm happy to see there are so many young women lawyers who take the practice of law so seriously and are in court every day, are arguing, and it's a treat, really a treat.
How nice. And on the personal side, how did things go? Because I'm guessing you had your child in Delhi.
Yes.
And you didn't have any family there, I guess.
No. My parents were in Delhi, but being a practicing lawyer and my father being a judge, there was no possibility of my,
Correct.
spending time with them or anything, lest it be misunderstood. So yeah, we were virtually just the two of us. My mother-in-law would come down to help me, but for her help, I think it would have been impossible to run the office, be in office full time, and bring up 2 girls. So it wasn't easy, but I guess I survived. There were tough times.
You more than survived, clearly.
Yeah. But it was like, you lived for the day, because those were the days when even if you had a child who's unwell, my younger daughter used to get asthma, and the whole night I would carry her and pace around or sit down with her on my shoulder and read simultaneously for the matters the next day. And I couldn't go back to court and say, you know what, I'm not prepared because my child was unwell and I had to be with her. That was not an option for us given those days when very few women were actually, at the bar. So that just didn't exist for us. So
find ways to deal. And
yeah.
so how about you? Did you ever feel like this is getting too much for Pallavi and for me and the kids, and let's just up and leave? Did you ever call your father and say, hey dad, I'm done, I'm coming back to Bombay City?
As Pallavi mentioned, I had no choice. I passed my law I was enrolled on 1st of July 1980, and I was heading the branch on 1st of October 1980. 1st of September. So literally I had 2 months at the bar myself, and I was a desk lawyer. For me to transit from a desk lawyer to a litigator was a dramatic change. I mean, I was clearly ill-equipped to meet such a situation, because we had some 3,000-4,000 cases in several courts, the district court, the Supreme Court, and the High Court. And at that age, we just had to plunge in, and as Pallavi mentioned, it was in the deep end. So at some point of time, yes, just handling the sheer number of cases was huge, a huge pressure, and it used to be, like working till midnight and then starting again at 6 o'clock. And I had a habit of getting up very early, so I managed it for some time. But then we had some tremendous help as colleagues from Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, who, as you know, is very successful senior counsel and also became the Solicitor General, and another gentleman by the name of D.P. Mohanty. Both of them took over the burden of the Supreme Court and left me to really tackle the High Court. And then over time, the firm grew, so we became bigger, and as a result of size, we could manage much more. So we started out I was perhaps the only lawyer in the firm. Pallavi joined us 1 year later because she was still studying in the second year of law. So we had a group of about 3 or 4 lawyers with me, and that was quite inadequate compared to the number of cases that we had daily. So yeah, we had to do everything. We had to go to the registry. We usually took notes on how the orders read. We didn't have any, electronic.
There's no electronic.
Yeah, it was not a
websites.
display, nor was the orders available till you actually took an inspection and you copied them out and stuff like that. So we've seen a huge transition from those days. It's been 40 years now since I have been in Delhi as a lawyer, and Pallavi about 39 years. So those many years have taught us a lot, and we've continuously improved our skill set, both in terms of technology as also in the sense of learning more laws. Some of the laws have become obsolete. Some of the laws are actually still in the making. So it was a fascinating exercise over so many years that though all that there were ups and downs, in the sense that we did feel that we are prematurely jumped into the deep end, but I think every failure brings up better success. So we managed it.
That is a very encouraging story. Now tell me, just to conclude this question, if I said Bombay and Delhi in the same sentence, when will your heart beat faster? When I say Bombay or Delhi?
Delhi.
Delhi. So
Absolutely.
Delhi, mine is Bombay still.
I'm a completely Delhi person. I've stayed more years of my life in Delhi than anywhere else because I studied here, my college. Then it's just for my post-graduation that I went to Bombay, got married, but came back quite soon. So I'm completely a Delhi girl.
So the Delhi girl just swept in, picked up a very eligible Bombay boy, and then took him to Delhi.
Brought him back here.
Very strategic, ma'am. Well done. And so, what about you? You were answering.
My heart and style of doing things is still Bombay.
Still Bombay.
Yeah, because I think the formative years I spent a lot of time studying the law, and getting groomed by my father, and that still has stayed with me because I have not changed my culture of working to the Delhi style. Created my own style. I work in Delhi as if I was from Bombay, and that made a difference. So my heart is still in Bombay.
What is that difference when you say your heart and style is still Bombay? What's the difference between Mumbai heart and style we're working and Delhi style?
See, when we came to Delhi, it was a glorified village in many ways. It was a chalta hai culture, which would mean that it'll happen. Don't worry, it'll happen. So nobody gave you a fixed promise. Nobody gave you a fixed time, and it was all Allah ke aasre kind of story. Whereas in Bombay, time meant money. Time meant exact formulation and preparation at the time and delivery at the time that you mentioned. So there was far more professionalism out of Mumbai than I had seen in Delhi. And at some point of time, we also looked at the expression Dilli ka thug. And that was also quite true in the way people dealt with us, or we could see others being dealt with. So there were certain peculiarities of Delhi which, coming from Bombay, were immediately noticeable. And that's why I said that, look, I stayed away from that culture, and I created my own culture of being on time, being delivering things on time, where time has value, and all those kind of cultural events which are different between Bombay and Delhi. Though of course now after 30, 40 years, it's all caught up. Today you cannot say that a Delhi professional is not delivering things on time, or is not as exact as a Bombay lawyer would. But the first impressions are what I still hold to myself, that this is how it was, and this is how we stayed out of that culture.
Yeah, and then Pallavi, ma'am, you were mentioning that Delhi, moving to Delhi, it was all a baptism of fire back then, because you were a mother to be, starting work. And even today, when we look at the role of women in the workforce, and especially senior up, even today, in 2020s, it's a tough battle, and there's still huge conversations at a society and government level about what we can do to support women, achieve that balance between career and home, because it's still, men really don't do enough at the home to support. So what were some of the key success factors that you had, and back then, 40 years ago, what really helped you, be able to get that balance between, being a mother, being a professional, working in the firm, and getting to court for the first time, which is an intimidating experience.
I think there is no formula, or there's no straitjacket formula or nothing like that. It was a struggle. It was a day-to-day struggle. But I think there is a determination to sort of do everything that came along, and so different roles that a woman always plays, that you wanted to be the wife, you're the mother, and the professional. And this often clashed. It's not that it didn't clash, but I think what's important is to have a family that understands you and that supports you, because I think whether we like it or we don't like it, family support is very, very critical. Not only for a not only for a woman to grow, but even for a man to grow. So I think it's a family support that I had. I think my own husband supported me tremendously. I think the way I've been brought up in my childhood, we were never I was never told this was for something that a woman could do or a man could do. I could do everything. So there was no distinction in my mind ever, something was my job or not my job. If I wanted it, it was my job. It was simple whether I wanted to do it or not. And I had tremendous support from Shardul's parents. So if I was like in the dock, literally, his mother would come down and spend time with me. The girls were going through. My older daughter had class 12 exams, and I had to go to the US for a matter and argue before the US trade representative on a trade issue. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity for me, and I was about to cancel it till she called and said, you go. I'll be here with Shweta, our older daughter, and I'll see that she goes through the exam. And she let me go. Now that sort of support that you get is tremendous. It's just unbelievable. And I came back as soon as I finished, but going to the US, arguing and coming back does take sort of time. And so I had that support. Plus, I think how your organization deals with you is as important. I think here was an opportunity where I got treated as an equal, and I was never told there's something I couldn't do, or I had kids at home, so you can't do it. And that is not only for me, it still applies to everybody across. Whether you were required to travel or whether you were required to stay up late at night, the opportunity is equal. And I think that's very, very important, because you have hidden biases against women that, they creep in. So how consciously can you keep away that bias was one other thing. And I got equal opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder. And I remember very early in my career, I was very nervous of doing public speaking. And, Shardul was the one who used to do everything. And he would always tell me, why the hell don't you go out and why don't you speak? If you can speak in court, you can speak in public. And I used to tell him, what? when I talk in court, the audience is behind me. It's only the judge that I'm addressing. But when you speak in public, the audience is in front of you.
Oh, wow.
And that's the big difference. And he used to laugh at me and he used to encourage me to go out and speak at public platforms and, go on television. So I got a tremendous amount of push also on that front. So I think it was the family, the background, equal opportunity that the firm gave me without making any distinction. And yeah, you had your own grit and determination that you just wanted to be there and do because you loved what you were doing. I love what I'm doing. Otherwise, you can't work 15 hours a day, 14 hours a day for 40 years.
Yeah, and I think, that's a phenomenal example because, normally we have this stereotype of mother-in-laws and, the in-laws and daughter-in-law kind of relationship, which is compounded by our kind of TV serials and, that's what we kind of get left with. But to hear these examples, and even Zia, when we interviewed her in the last series, said the same thing, that support from the mother-in-law, especially, and the in-laws was so critical for them to develop a career. And we were lucky because now we've got such, strong role models in, you and Zia.
Right. Yeah.
But because of that foundation behind you, and that's, a kind of key part that we need to kind of keep inculcating.
That's
because,
true.
it's not easy.
No.
Being a professional.
Also, when I say sort of getting treated as an equal, Shardul's parents treated me like they treated Shardul. If we were on the dinner table and opinions were sort of sought on anything, they would ask Shardul's opinion, Cyril's opinion, and mine. And quite often, my father-in-law would go with my opinion. So I was never treated as the daughter-in-law sitting there and, who didn't matter. So we got real opportunity. And my father-in-law was my actually professional mentor, because every day I came back from court and I did something good or whatever happened, I used to talk to him at 4:30 every evening. And no matter what, he would take my call and tell me what to do. Like I would discuss a matter with him. He says, okay, that was today, but what have you planned for tomorrow in the same matter? Or what's your matter tomorrow? Don't rest on your victory or a good order on day one. You need to think ahead. So that's what always taught me thinking, constantly thinking about the matters that I'm doing, of my work for the client. It was a training in his own way, and that was tremendous. Maybe that time I didn't realize, but I was so excited I would go and talk to him. And now I realize what tremendous training he gave me without even sort of,
And this is all
realizing.
virtual, right, ma'am? As in over
Yes, all on the phone.
And he's,
all on the phone.
Imagine life has come a full circle, and now
That's
we're again
right.
in remote working conditions
True.
after almost 40 years, right?
That's true.
So not so new for you anymore.
No.
Wonderful. So that brings us, thank you both for sharing so wonderfully and honestly. That brings us to the end of the interview round. And off to play some games now. So
Wow.
next one is called, Word Sneak. And moving to that. Okay. So just for the sake of the audience, I'm going to quickly explain what this entails. Both Pallavi ma'am and Shardul sir have been given a few words each privately. So I've just sent you yours on WhatsApp. Vikas, I assume you've sent ma'am hers on WhatsApp.
Yes, I have got that.
The audience will receive the same list of words for the both of them on the chat screen. So you can open your chat screens. Ma'am and sir, we're trusting lawyers. Please don't open your chat screens. And the endeavor is that they're going to try and have a very organic conversation, weaving in the words that have been given to them. And that's why it's called Word Sneak, right? They're sneaking in the words. So have you both received your words?
Yes.
I have received mine.
Thank you.
Shall we, Neha, do you want me to wait till you put the words out to the guests, or shall we start?
Why don't you start?
Sure. So we're going to start this. Ma'am, sir, the stage is yours.
Okay.
Thank you. You go first, Pallavi.
With COVID happening all around, the only two buzzwords that we hear is force majeure, impossibility, incapable of performance of contracts. We see so much of cases that are happening, and yet are they really happening at all? Are people really going to court? I doubt.
One of the things which I miss the most is the ability to go out of the house and have a nice snack. Uh, for the last 7 months, because of COVID, we've not been able to reach out or go to a Haldiram or go to any of the popular joints because I'm quite a snacky eater. And I love my pani puri and dal kachori and bhel and stuff like that, which we have had to make at home because it's something you miss. It's something which is sort of originated in Mumbai and it continues to be my taste even in Delhi.
So COVID's been a time where one has got, while one works very hard, sometimes you want to relax and you see a lot of movies. And the one movie that I've seen so many times during this period, 6 months, is actually Kung Fu Panda. I think it is such a meaningful movie. It is so good. And whether it's series 1, 2, 3, I've just enjoyed that movie more than ever before.
In the times of COVID, again, one of the issues which bothers me as a lawyer is this whole principle where rather than bail, it is jail, and people tend to be put into detention and trial and the trial is really effectively prolonged. And there have been several cases in history where people have outlived the punishment as people who are in detention. In a sense, their staying inside the jail has exceeded the punishment for the relevant offense, which is a sad tragedy because freedom is a fundamental right, and that's breached more often than not in India.
So I wonder how many of us have sort of gone on to Amazon and Flipkart, shopped every night using our credit cards. I have done it most regularly. There's an Amazon parcel coming into our home virtually every day, and I thoroughly enjoy doing it. And I'm sure most of us have got more Amazon parcels coming in this 6 months than ever before.
One of the other issues which I sort of am able to keep up since we've been at home for a very long time is the hobbies which I have had right from school. I was always good in handicrafts and working with gum and scotch tape and do origami and stuff like that. So that's something which has been recreated by me at home, and I enjoy doing this because it's a common hobby shared with my younger daughter, who is also good at art and handicraft.
So during all of these days of sad news every morning, literally, if somebody, getting hit by COVID and all, some good news also. मेरे यार की शादी हो रही है लंदन में in the coming week, and I'm so excited for him.
Again, these times are such, in some ways, there is leisure or at least a laid back feeling that one can keep because you're not going to the office. But equally, I think the situation where, you sometimes just don't want to wake up and brush your teeth and you just want to, go into breakfast without really having cleansed your mouth, and it's one of those things which I find quite unusual for me to do in this lockdown period.
And talking of weddings in London, I sometimes wonder how Shardul and I, you'd be all surprised to know, we've been married 41 years. And last year we celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. This year it's our 41st wedding that we celebrated at home. Couldn't step out anywhere, couldn't do much, but that was it. 40 years of togetherness.
I think the other thing which the COVID and the kind of pandemic that we are going through has effectively curtail the kind of entertainment or the kind of theater or movies. And we've really had to focus on only such entertainment as is coming up on television. And we don't have the variety of entertainment that we got in a non-pandemic period.
We're talking of entertainment, we're talking of food. Shardul, you're a foodie, I know, and I love cooking as well. And the one thing that I love doing and making for Shardul is vada pav, because I miss the Bombay vada pav, the spice, the chutney, all of that. And I think I've now learned how to make that pretty well.
Speaking of entertainment, my favorite actor has been Amitabh Bachchan, and probably after him, I would be hard put to say who is my second favorite. If you go to the old timers, it would probably be Dev Anand. If you go for the current lot, it probably would be Shah Rukh. So, you've seen in 60, 65 years, we've seen so many actors come and go. But I think Amitabh is really still the best.
And you know what? I want to end sort of this thing with a quote. I was reading something actually on women and women empowerment and what it is to do and how women entrepreneurship should be encouraged and what can be done. In fact, I'm speaking tomorrow at the BRICS Women's Alliance on women's entrepreneurs. And, it reminded me of Michelle Obama's statement of success is not when you make money, it is when you change the lives of somebody else. And I think that statement has stayed with me and will stay with me for a long time.
I think I'm a very happy person in that Pallavi is a director on Paytm, and it's one of those major prestigious boards that she serves. She's on other boards also, but I think Paytm's probably is the best example of a good board with international members and perhaps setting the best standards for directors.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Good sneaking there.
Very smooth, very
Very
smooth.
smooth. Could you both tell though that he was sneaking in a word or ma'am was sneaking in a word? Could you tell?
Yeah, I think we
I
could.
think more or
could.
less.
Especially when keywords are there, you can catch up.
मेरे यार की शादी है, ma'am. Is that even real?
It is.
It's a real.
Harish is getting married next week, Harish Salve.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Good use of information there. Well done. Did you both have fun? Because it was a lot of fun.
It was good.
It's fun.
Okay.
Also trying to continue a sentence or some thought that the other one has left, and then you take that forward. I thought it was good fun.
Correct.
Yes, certainly it was good fun.
Good. That's good. Okay, so we'll continue having some more fun. Now we'll focus on the both of you more as a couple in our next segment, which is called Point a Finger. So the one time you can totally point a finger at her and she will take no offense. Okay, go for it. So we're moving on to the next segment, Point a Finger. All right. In this segment, the both of you have to close your eyes. Now, since you're sitting in separate rooms, I'm going to ask you a question. And if it applies to you, you point towards yourself. If it applies to the other person, point to the screen. It's a very popular TikTok, Instagram type of a thing that we've gone ahead and used here. All right. Are you ready? These are very personal questions about the both of you as a couple. Okay. And you have to answer.
Do we keep our eyes covered, or because we're in different rooms, it doesn't matter?
No, you keep your eyes closed. You keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
Otherwise, there should be no bias. Okay.
Okay.
And if you visit this later, then there'll be lots to learn about each other. On this particular coupling segment. Okay. And you can have arguments around it also. All right. So, are we ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Super. Who is the better lawyer? Ma'am, I can't see your hand. You'll have to.
Oh.
Oh, nice. Okay. Who is the better parent? Oh. Who says sorry first? Okay. Who is the messy one?
Yeah, I think so.
So we didn't see what your hand is.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
sorry.
So, who is the social butterfly?
Any
Okay, who is more likely to get into a road fight?
neither.
Neither. Oh, living in Delhi and no road fights. What are the both of you doing?
No
We're
road
still
fight.
Bombay walas.
When I'm in the car, I catch up on my sleep.
Okay, fair enough. So you
Or
don't want to
listen to
fight at all.
music, so I don't
You
fight.
don't want to fight. Okay. Who is the procrastinator? Okay. Who can go most days without a shower? Okay. Who is the better dancer? Nice. Okay. Who is grumpier in the morning? Okay. Who is more likely to buy jewelry? Nice. Who spends more time on the phone? So it's not answering.
No, he does. He does.
He's like, I want.
He spends all the time on the phone.
I don't agree.
Okay. Which in fact brings me to my next question: who's most likely to start an argument?
Perhaps me.
Both of us.
Both of us.
us.
Both of us are capable of
Too
arguing.
headstrong
Yeah,
to
too headstrong
give up
people.
positions.
Brilliant. Two lawyers at play.
Too
Clearly.
headstrong people.
Wonderful. And yet you've survived 41 years and going
Yes.
strong.
Yes.
Well done. Well done. All right. Who is likely to finish an argument?
Pallavi,
Ooh, nice.
both
Okay.
of us.
And this one's very, very important. It's my personal favorite question.
Okay.
Who is more romantic?
Definitely me.
You both can open your eyes. We finished this segment.
Well, definitely me.
This was fun.
It was. Good questions.
Okay, super. We're now heading to our last segment for this particular episode because Sir says he's interested in doing more episodes eventually. He's
Yeah.
surprised it's just episode 1 with Pallavi and Shardul Shroff. Are there going to be more? So
Oh, no.
I guess we
One
get
is
done.
enough.
No, it was more from the expression that said, that said number one. So I thought there are more than one, or they're splitting up this into 2 parts or something.
No.
Ma'am, he's fully gone all lawyer on me and I've left the room.
Interpretation of every word.
Correct.
Right?
Attention to detail, interpretation. He's rolled all of that into one. Okay, super. We're moving on to the last segment. So this one's called the interrogation, but it's pretty much like a rapid fire. We expect for you to answer quickly, swiftly, and very, very impromptu, right?
Okay.
So, segment 4. All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll ask the question. Ma'am, you decide which one of you would like to answer first. Shall we let ma'am go?
Okay.
Yeah, she can go first. No
So
problem.
ma'am will answer first and then you. But you have to answer for yourselves, okay? Like not like respectively yourselves, right? Okay. So ma'am, if you want a lawyer, what would you be?
A chef.
A chef. Really?
I love cooking.
Oh wow. So you weren't joking about that vada pav. You were
No.
really-
Honestly, I make good vada pav.
How nice. Okay. So how about you? If you want a lawyer, what would you be?
I'd be an astrologer.
An astrologer. See, can you read my palm? I'll call you later separately.
No, I can make a jantri or the basic
horoscope.
horoscope.
Oh, so you could tell like when we're going to get rich and all. You'll be able to say all that.
Yeah, I can.
And like I said, I'll call you separately about this. Okay. Next question. 3 words that your friends would use to describe you, ma'am.
Fun loving. Fun loving. Fun loving.
Fun. Okay. How about you, sir?
Complete fun.
Mine would be more serious, more sort of deep, and very kind.
Nice. How nice. Okay. Ma'am, what advice did you get which was the most rewarding piece of advice you've ever got?
Most rewarding was from my mother-in-law when she told me, law is a jealous mistress. Join the profession, otherwise you won't see your husband.
Oh, wow. Okay. And
You
how
won't
about
get
you, sir?
In my case, I think the best advice I got was that there is no shortcut in life. You have to work hard. You have to have inspiration, of course, but it is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So you have to work hard in life.
That is, and who gave you this advice?
My father.
Your father. Okay. So, ma'am, who's been your strongest mentor professionally?
Professionally, it's been Shardul's father, late Mr. Suresh Shroff, and in my personal life, I aim to be like my father, Justice Bhagwati.
What a wonderful combination of both
Yeah,
the
the
fathers.
best one could get in life.
Lovely. How about you, sir?
In my case, again, my mentor was my father. We had some very strange hours to be mentored. We used to start the day at 3:30 in the morning, and he would sort of go through my entire day of the past or yesterday, effectively. And a lot of discussion used to take place from 3:30 to 5. And then I would go back to sleep, and he would go back to sleep. On the personal side, I think my mother has had a great influence on me, and I would say that she's been my mentor. A lot of my characteristics have evolved from her. The sense of kindness, the sense of hard work, uh, the, the, the natural ability to think about others and to really take care of the whole universe around you. These are all the qualities that my mother translated to me.
That's wonderful. Okay. What was, ma'am, back to you. When was the last time you were very emotional?
I think I was last week, I think, in fact, I was with my mother. I spent a couple of days with her, and then when I had to leave, I became a bit emotional. I've never been such an emotional person that way, but you know, she's 93, and I'd spent so much good 2-3 days with her, so I felt a bit emotional, sort of, you know, leaving her.
Naturally, correct. Okay. How about you, sir? When was the
In
last
my,
time you were emotional?
in my case, I think those people who have been near me or have been, very friendly and whom I feel a respect, a friendship, when any of these fall ill or are terminally ill, I completely become, I cannot just see them, because in that, I don't associate them with that kind of bed rest or, being in a bad shape. So that is something I carry for a very long time. And I recently went through one of our friends. She's a very prominent lady, Mrs. Ishara Aluwalia, and it still haunts me that she's gone.
I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, it can be difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for sharing those so honestly. Ma'am, if I were to ask you, what is the one thing you're petrified of, like really, really, really frightened by? What would you say?
You know, the fact that I have to answer my conscience, that's what I feel. I want to sleep answering my conscience every night. So that's what actually guides me. But petrified of, I don't know. Not much, no.
None much. Okay, just answerability to yourself, I
To
suppose.
my conscience, yeah.
Correct.
And
Okay.
my conscience, my God about.
How about you, sir?
As I said, losing a dear one or losing somebody who's been near to you, whether as a friend or as a parent, the fact that they're gone does petrify me.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for answering that honestly. Vikas, over to you for the next set of questions.
Thanks, Manisha. A destination or a holiday that you've been meaning to visit or take, but have been unable to. So, Pallavi, ma'am, first.
The place that I love the most, and I've been there several times, is Paris. I think it's the most romantic city in the world. And holidays, we make plans every year, but nothing happens. So, really.
Shardul, sir.
I think London is my place to go because there's so much happening in London. I like theatre, I like good food, I like shopping. So it has many things combined in one destination. Typically, I prefer good food, good shopping, some amount of spa, so you sort of detox yourself. So those are the kind of destinations that I prefer, and London does meet most of those tests.
Not great weather though. But,
Not big.
yeah.
Yeah, no weather at all. Good.
A movie or a book that you really enjoyed?
A movie. A movie.
Movie or book, yeah. Apart from Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, plenty.
Not-
I like light, entertaining movies. I'm not somebody who sees very heavy, serious movies. So anything that's entertaining, comedy, light comedy, things like that is what I really like.
Any in particular?
No, there's so many things that come on television. I sit down and see it. Yeah, anything that's light and you have to leave your brains behind and see that movie.
Yeah.
At
Shardul,
a
sir?
point of time, I was a addict to kung fu movies, and the whole. I was fascinated by the ability of martial arts in a traditional sense. But I think nowadays I like to see more legally oriented serials, and I remember years ago, almost 20 years ago, I saw almost 20 parts of LA Law from morning to the next day morning through the night, and so yes, I like to see movies and serials. I am currently watching an old version, second time I'm seeing the Suits, because the ninth season was not displayed earlier. So I'm going through the whole series of Suits currently.
Wow.
Who is your favorite character for Suits?
I think Spectre.
Respect. Had to be.
Any day.
Fair.
A skill you would borrow from each other. Pallavi, ma'am.
Yes.
Eye for detail. I borrow from him.
Shardul, sir.
I borrow from, or rather I'm inspired by her never say die spirit, or her grit and the ability to fight it out, not give up, never be down and out. I think that is a remarkable quality Pallavi has, and I'd like to I take inspiration from that.
Super. One thing you believe everyone should try in their lives once. Pallavi, ma'am.
For me, I think prayer is very important in whatever form you want to pray, with whatever belief you have. Some form of prayer, I think everybody should try.
Yeah, that is a common perspective for both Pallavi and me. I do a lot of prayer. I listen to a lot of religious music. And that's, again, part of my nature. It's part of the equanimity that I get from listening to prayers, saying stotras, saying the whole religious aspect of my life. That is part of me.
Amazing. I suppose you do need it when you've got such stressful, high-pressure jobs as well. So you need to be able to slow down.
Yeah.
Eat what you kill. Eat what is cooked and served. Or I will teach you how to hunt. What is your philosophy as founders or mentors?
I will teach you how to hunt.
Mine is slightly different. I will hunt and you will eat.
I want to work for Shardul, sir. I'm not a practicing lawyer anymore, but I'm going to send you my CV, okay? Because this sounds like a good plan. He'll hunt, I'll sit and eat. Good plan.
I'll go out with you and hunt, and I'll teach you how to hunt.
And then with that never say die attitude, I may get killed. So thank you, but no thank you, ma'am. I'm sticking to Camp Shardul, sir.
What's the silliest thing you've had an emotional attachment to? Pallavi, ma'am.
Silliest thing.
Even back to childhood.
It wasn't a silly thing, but I used to dance at one point of time, and I used to be very, very attached to my gungru. Unfortunately, when we moved to Delhi, they got lost. But that was something that I was very, very attached to. And I've never got over the fact that I lost them, because they were given to me by my guru.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
what form of dance was this, ma'am?
I used to learn Kathak first from Kumudini Lakya and then from Pandit Birju Maharaj. So these were given to me by Birju Maharaj. So they were very, very precious to me.
Okay. How about
In my case, I collected a lot of comic books, and I still treasure my comic books. Even if somebody took one of the large number of comics that I have, I would be hugely sentimental about that and follow that it comes back. I don't let people take my comic books.
What's your favorite comic series?
I like Archie and Betty, that whole all the series of Riverdale.
Interesting. What do you both think that 2020 has taught you, ma'am, for you personally?
To me personally, patience. I am a very restless person who is constantly on the move, constantly doing something. This lockdown, being at home, not stepping out, has taught me to calm down and to enjoy life as it comes.
Wonderful.
The one thing that I didn't do, I was constantly on the move. So this is what the biggest thing that I've learned is to calm down and patience.
To pause and be patient, essentially.
Yes.
Thank you. And so how about you?
In my case, I think it has heightened my sense of anxiety for the people who work with me. I have always believed in our people. I believe them as party to the whole process of success of a law firm. And what tremendously sort of puts me on the knife's edge is if any one of them falls sick or is in a position where they are not able to get enough money which they need for an emergency, or some of those kind of issues which are somebody falling sick, somebody getting COVID, somebody getting some form of illness which I can't manage or control for them. And where, for example, if there are no hospital beds available, how do you sort of make things possible for people? Those are the things that I have worried more during the lockdown than I ever did.
Understandably so, right? Fair. And speaking of the firm, what do you feel? And this is the last question on this segment. Ma'am, I'll start with you. What do you think the biggest challenge, what are some of the biggest challenges that fresh graduates are facing today when they join law firms?
Today, during COVID time, if you're asking me when they join law firm, they're not able to meet their seniors and their colleagues face to face. That bonding that you get when you meet people face to face, you share that coffee around the coffee point, or you're working, you walk across and ask your colleague for something. I think all that is something that brings a bond. This is what people will miss, that on the job mentorship, where your senior comes across to your desk and says, do it this way, this wasn't good, or come and have this coffee with me. That whole bond, homie camaraderie, that's what they're going to miss for the first 6 months, 7 months, or maybe more of their life. It's very different when you're a fresher. You're only seeing people on Zoom or Teams or something, and you've never met them physically. You don't know who they are or what they are. Your colleagues, your senior, your partner. I think that's, if I were in that place, I'd be very unnerved, frankly. I'm working, I'm doing, but where am I connecting with people? Because people connect is very, very critical for a firm, for any organization.
True, true. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for saying that. How about you, sir?
I think very similar ideas with Pallavi just expressed. I feel that they're missing out on a lot of face-to-face mentoring, issues of guiding them really to do things in a different way, or telling them the rationale as to why this and not that. The whole techniques that they have to sort of, they've got limited to research on the web. They don't really go into a physical library. They Those are the kind of things that I think they are missing out on, and it's very difficult to actually mentor a person on a screen. You don't in the office, you literally a walk in or walk out. There are no, I don't control people's movements into my this thing. I have an open door policy, which you can't do on a electronic screen, because the screen is not on 24/7. So there are those limitations in keeping people mentally tuned to you, and I think that's the biggest gap all law firms must be facing today.
Correct. Yes, that's true. Thank you for saying that, sir. Last question actually is going to be one that I personally want to ask. It's impromptu. So, Pallavi ma'am, for you, is it Shardul Shroff, the lawyer and partner at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas, or you prefer Shardul Shroff, the partner back home, the husband?
I think there's very little difference between the two for him and for both of us in that sense. There's so much of office at home and home at I mean, there's no home at office, but there's a lot of office at home, so I think our lives are more wrong perhaps, but yeah, there's an extreme that there's a lot of office at home, in fact, and I like Shardul Shroff as my husband a lot. 40 years you can't spend with somebody.
True.
I think
Very kind man, very generous, and a very kind person, kind human being. That's what
I think I also prefer
me.
Pallavi, the wife, in the sense that we spent so many years now that we literally know how to complete each other's sentences. So I think it's a very sort of, we are like yin and yang, or we are like opposite poles. So I think it's one of those cases where I am at times diametrically opposite her situation or her thinking, and it's like opposites attract kind of story. So yeah, I think both at the office and at home, she's a fantastic person, very focused, very sort of driven, oriented, goal oriented, whether it's at home or office, because whether it's about cooking a dish or whether it is doing a matter, her dedication to both are equal.
Or whether it's being your wife, that also the dedication is equally high. So it's a
Yes.
win-win for you, sir, at every level.
Yeah, but it's been very hard to actually achieve, because unless you give each other space and vacate another person's space, it's not easy to do. If you're trying to do the same thing, then ego clashes come in very quickly. So we have always, for the last maybe 30 years, we've segregated what is her domain and what is my domain. And it's sort of strange that, for example, for a guy like me to say jewelry purchases is my jurisdiction. So it's sort of very unusual kind of division. I like art, she likes jewelry, but we sort of decide to buy only when we have both agreed to a thing. So we don't buy anything which is without both consenting to what we are buying, and that has kept us very, even in the workspace. I don't work on areas where she does, nor does she work on areas which I do. So there is a healthy sort of space given by each one to the other. So that's what probably is the secret of success.
41 years. That's how you survive 41 years.
Yeah, both in
Yes.
the office and at home. I get asked this question quite often. How do you manage you with your living with your husband, working with your husband? But I think it's just the fact that one, you respect each other a lot and a lot of space to each other. And unless you give space to each other, you cannot survive. Because at least between us, I can tell you, we are two very headstrong people. And unless we respect each other and we give space, it
Yes.
cannot work. It cannot work. So you have to respect that. And that also doesn't bring in any jealousy.
That's very
It doesn't
important.
bring in jealousy of any kind at all.
Yeah, we are both happy for each other's success. I
Yeah.
I always am very happy if Pallavi has done something major or fought a big case or developed a new argument. I'm beaming with joy when that happens, because I really believe she's a good lawyer.
That is wonderful. Thank you both. This has been so enjoyable for us. I hope it has been enjoyable for you.
It has been. It has been quite fascinating, quite interesting for me,
We're
and
glad.
enjoyable. More than anything, enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you both
Thank
for
you.
agreeing to do this, for being
Thank
our guests, for sharing so openly and honestly. We've really enjoyed ourselves, and wishing you both a very happy Dasera once again. And so we'll
Thank
be
you.
back
Same to
on
you.
that, come back for another episode, okay, like you suggested.
Certainly. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
I
lot.
think there are some
Bye-bye.
Q&A.
Would you like to take questions, ma'am?
I don't know if you want to. I
Sure.
have to.
If we,
We have a few. So yeah, we have a few questions. If you want, it's up if you want to take them.
Yeah,
It's
we
okay.
have to
I
take
don't have a
them.
problem.
sure, let's.
I can't see of any of those questions, so you'll have to tell us
Yeah,
what
I know.
they are.
But there are-
Well,
Vikas,
yeah,
do you want to read
yeah,
them?
one of the questions I think you may have already answered, but have you ever worked together on some transactions or matters? And if you have, what is that mantra of working together as a couple and managing those interpersonal issues that may arise?
See, in the first 11 years of our professional lives, we were both litigators. 91, when 91 happened and the economy started out opening, I took the plunge in creating the diversity of practices in the firm. We were a litigation firm. We were not a general, full service firm. So I shifted into areas where I was discovering positions, making positions for myself, and effectively creating a new dimension. And I did that even recently for the last 4 years. I started the insolvency and bankruptcy practice from scratch. I was not ever doing bankruptcy law, but I took upon myself that let me start developing this. And today we have one of the best practices. So even in the past, what we did was we organized ourselves into compartmentalizing our contributions to a joint matter. So if, for example, I was doing the research bit, she would do the drafting, or vice versa. It would depend on what one felt at that point of time. So it was part of healthy division of work. There were some matters where she would handle it on her own. So some matters which I would handle on my own. But there were days when we were so pressed for running around courts that we took a decision that these cases you do, these cases I do. So it was that way. But it was
No,
never
but-
about egos. It was never about I want the better matters. There was no selective basis on the theory that I must do better than you. It didn't matter to me.
No, I don't think it mattered ever who did what in that sense. But I think there are a number of matters that we work together on the same matter. And I think there we used each other as a sounding board for the thoughts and the ideas and the propositions of law and how we wanted to develop the law. And if I would take it up to a point, he would take it forward. And we'd sort of debate it out like we would at any two people would. And I think that's what I like and find very challenging is, you can have a debate at a very high level with Shardul on any subject of the law, any aspect of the law, whether, and I do only litigation or competition or white collar crime, and even any of these areas, you know, if I want to bounce off thoughts, I still go to Shardul and say, Shardul, this is what I'm thinking. How do you think? Or we could be working together on the same matter, and, you know, we will do it the same way.
Super. The next question is actually from somebody who's Delhi based and a very old friend of yours. He's going to join us.
Oh,
Are you here already?
who's this?
Yes.
We've invited him in.
Hi, Rajiv. How are you?
Hey,
Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine.
hi.
So first, I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I don't care what IDEX thinks. I'm going to ask them.
Okay.
So you listen to me, right, Mr. Luthra, because you don't care what IDEX thinks. That's okay. I'm not IDEX. I'm Grey Matter.
No, okay, you and Gray. Now, here's the first. I want to thank the Almighty that Almighty has brought Shardul and Pallavi into my life as a trusted friend, trusted advisors. They are very, very, very special human beings. And what they've done with their children is bits of them too. An excellent sanskar and all of that. Congratulations to you and thank you very much to have you guys as my pals. Number one. The question to Shardul is, Shardul, I like the color of your kurta.
Selected by Pallavi.
We'll come to that in a minute. And I like the way your face is structured and your beard. Are you trying to say something?
No, maybe it's just lazy, being lazy.
So the same thing we can say for our esteemed Prime Minister.
That's what I was
No,
about to say something.
you can't identify the Prime Minister without his beard. You can identify me without a beard.
Oh, good.
Because this is a recent acquisition.
I know you were a French beard guy, and I followed you, by the way.
I know.
He's one of my idols. Now, if you've all noticed, Pallavi's rocked the pigeon red ruby. Have you all noticed that, guys?
Rajiv, please.
How do you see these things even on a video?
I am also a detailed man. Now,
Ma'am, please show us now that he's brought it up. Just please hold your hand up. Fine.
And tell the story of that to me, please, to the whole world.
Gifted to me by Shardul on our 40th anniversary.
See? Well, thank you very much. And God bless both of you forever.
Thank
God
you.
bless you too,
Thank you.
because
Thank
I do
you.
believe out of all the lawyers I have met, I have not seen a more generous person than you.
That's
Good-hearted person. Good-hearted
Yeah,
person.
very, very big-hearted, large-hearted, very generous.
Thank God you didn't say very big body.
That's a matter of fact, not a matter of opinion.
You will always have the last word, Shardul.
Yes. But thank you so much for coming on this and talking
Thank
to
you,
us.
Rajiv.
It's a lot
No,
to
no,
us.
thank you. Thank you. My honor. My honor.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you, Vikas, and thank you, Tanisha.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Pleasure. We have one more question, ma'am, and so that we'd like for you to answer.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, can you tell us a funny travel story that you both took off to travel somewhere and something funny happened during that travel? Is there anything like that?
I know, but the best trip that I've ever made with with the girls and Shardul and I has been when we did a trip to Austria. And we were doing train travel from one city to the other. And between, I think, 4 of us, we had some 8 bags. We couldn't travel light. So we had some 8 big bags. And we couldn't get it into a compartment. So we were literally sitting on the bags. And we had such a rollicking time, the 4 of us. And then we had to lug these 8 bags from at the railway station, from climb the staircase, bring it down the other side. And that, of course, we panted and panted, but 8 bags we traveled with. I don't know what we carried in them, but couldn't travel light.
Yeah.
When was this? Were the girls young?
They were in college. So yeah, this was about, they've been practicing for about 15 years now. So yeah, about
20 years, about 20 years
20 years ago. But
It sounds very. It
it
sounds very
sounds
polyglot.
quite stupid carrying 8 bags and traveling around Europe.
And they got to started giggling and laughing and they couldn't stop.
I'm glad they chose to continue to stay your daughters.
Yes.
Yes.
Lovely.
No,
Okay.
they are both a fun lot. I think the 3 of them, Pallavi and the 2 girls, are the humor side of the family, and I'm on the serious side of the family. So again, there is a overwhelming amount of humor from the 3 girls, and sometimes they just make me the target of it. So yeah, it's fun.
You must be an easy target, sir, therefore.
I am always an easy target.
Okay, lovely. Good.
Good.
So do you want to take on more questions, or would you, I mean,
I think
If there are any questions which are left, certainly, I mean, if it's properly
so
formed
they
also.
wanted to know, since sir's watching Suits, someone's asking how much relevance does the show hold according to you, when it comes to...
Not at all. Not at all in the Indian context. These are very unusual positions that perhaps American lawyers can. I don't personally.
I don't think even American lawyers
do what they
take
do. This is bordering more on fiction than on fact.
complete fiction, if you ask me.
And someone's asking, what do you see of the legal profession as it's evolving in terms of legal tech, work from home policies? A lot of modernization happening with law firms, which we've never imagined would have happened, courtesy the pandemic. But are these traits here to stay, or you think they're going to vanish the minute we can physically start meeting again?
No,
I think I'm very clear that it's going to stay for as long as technology moves. So you might find very unusually that there is no physical office. It might be just a pure virtual world, and physical meeting space may just become an unnecessary aspect of the legal, at least the law forms. So there are these are very sort of deep-rooted changes which have happened, and I think in terms of efficiency, in terms of lowering your expenditure, all these are critical factors which will stay. They're not going to disappear.
Sure.
So as I think 3 things I think which are going to be very important. One is most law firms will have to adopt a lot of technology and invest in technology, because without that, it's becoming almost impossible to function, whether you are in office or you're going to be outside office. But I think it's going to be more a situation where you're going to be a lot outside office, even during normal times. So adoption of technology is very, very critical. And there's a lot of investment to be made. 2, there have to evolve policies where there is an option for a number of people to work a few days in a week from home, or to work for a couple of months, or to work all the time from home. So the 2 or 3 options that we will all have to work out with. And I think the fundamental mode of way we work in an office is where you have your own desk and your own table and your own chair. That may no longer be relevant, because if you're not going to come to office unless it's critical and there's a meeting that you can't do virtually, you can call and book a space or a table and a chair for the day that you want to come into office, and you don't need a permanent place to sit. The one change that we all need to do in law firms, we are still a lot paper driven. The corporate side of the practice is less paper driven, but the litigation side of the practice is still essentially paper driven, because courts have always wanted the 3 copies, 4 copies. Senior counsel, when we briefed them, always wanted a hard copy, and you had these 10 volumes and 12 volumes, which you made 3 copies of, and they were lying around and all. So I think if that we are able to change, and during this pandemic, a lot has changed, because all filings in court are e-filings. Judges have got used to, us telling them paid so and so of a filing done on a particular day, and they're able to locate it. So with a little more experience in the courts, I think we should be able to come up with a lot more policies. We do not need to be physically. So even today, say, for example, the Delhi High Court has 2 days a week that is physical hearing, but the rest of it is all, virtual hearing. And people prefer virtual hearings today to physical hearings. So I think it's here to stay.
I think technology both on the judicial side, in the sense court, as well as the transactional side, is going to go on increasing. It will be difficult for lawyers to keep up with the technology change because it's a costly process. It's not a cheap process. The virtual world of lawyers will take a higher and higher step movement upwards, because the whole technological space, the electronic space, the artificial intelligence are all going to increase and speed things up. And therefore the transition from physical work to sort of working on the screen, researching on the screen, that whole element is going to increase, and that's going to be the new future of law.
But I have a question around this. When we meet our clients in person, there's a certain, intimate sort of bond that you're able to build. How are we going to do this in a virtual world, especially when you have new clients that you're onboarding or taking on? I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. Any thoughts?
I think today globally people have started realizing that the number of visits law firms used to go abroad, visit them every quarter, those have become impossible because the COVID is out of control. So they have found themselves in a substitute situation where there's a lot more dialogue in terms of seminars, webinars, and talking to each others at a level where you're dealing with the core group of a foreign firm or a local firm. And in some sense, they've found their way around. It cannot substitute for a physical meeting or a face-to-face meeting, but people adapt. And I see that adapting has already happened, except that we will probably see a faster track in the process of law. Virtual courts are there to be, but virtual tribunals will also happen. And I feel that the preparation of briefs and the preparation of the law will also become different in the sense of presentations. Today, we are still following the old technique of presenting as if you are in court. But if this process continues, you'll find a whole different method of writing briefs, of writing written submissions, and expect the judge with his juniors, because they all have law clerks, to read up and then feed the judges the relevant information. So the time of things will again, as I said, be reduced. So it's a whole new world coming about. It's just a matter of time. The only problem as I have is that the world is still asymmetrical. The younger people, the people with less capital, the people with less, ability in terms of money, there is no equality. And that's not good, because if for doing a full profession, when you're standing up in the court, you really don't feel that inequality. But when you got to work on a technical platform, the higher the platform, the better you are. So there will be some amount of inequalities which will get highlighted by virtue of the fact that technology is moving really fast. And for normal sort of small firms, it's very difficult to continuously change your technology or upgrade it. So there is a problem for the profession.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think we've pretty much answered all the questions that were there in the Q&A. And we appreciate you taking the time to answer those.
Thank you.
And thank you for having.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.